Stop to Sell is a space where Eduardo welcomes guests from various areas, he analyzes various topics, and establishes an action plan. The expression better done than perfect is typical. On the other hand, there are professionals who collect and analyze a lot of data before making a decision. Eduardo suggests you take an hour to think about your activity, prospecting methods, identifying needs, closing deals, following up with clients, and establishing partnerships. Eduardo is counting on you.
So number one, I think one of the best skills that you can pick up is active listening.
Okay.
Right. A lot of sellers that I have met, they will not actively listen to their prospect, but they're having a conversation such as they give an objection and the salesperson says, oh yes, but if you look at us, we're much better than them, or we don't have the budget. I know you don't have the budget, but if you have a conversation with us, you can see the pricing discounts we can give you. This is not active listening. This is listening with the intent to reply.
Hey, welcome to the Stop to Sell. This is the podcast where we pause before we pursue, where we step back from pressures, scripts, and noise and focus instead on understanding people, behavior, and what truly drives decisions. I'm your host, Eduardo Mouta. I work at the intersections of sales, emotional intelligence, and applied neuroscience, helping sales professionals and leaders sell in a more human, ethical, and sustainable way. Today's episode is especially important because we are talking about prospecting, one of the most emotionally demanding parts of sales, and how it can be done with empathy, clarity, and respect without sacrificing performance. My guest today is Neil, a strong voice in movement towards human-centric selling. Neil works with sales professionals and teams to help them prospect in a way that protects mental health, builds real connection, and creates long-term results. Well, Neil, welcome. How are you, Neil?
Eduardo, thank you very much. Bon dia, and thank you very much for having me. I'm well, and I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. So thank you for having me.
No, thanks you, Neil, for accepting to come to the Stop to Sell podcast. Um, it's a great honor to receive you because I do respect your work in social media.
Thank you, sir.
Well, talking about our goals about human-centric in prospecting, what do you feel is fundamentally broken in the way prospecting is done today, Neil?
So it's a really good question. So I'm not sure. I wouldn't be sure to say that if it's broken, but it's definitely changing, and it's
Okay.
changed a great deal. So I've worked in the world of sales for about 15 years now, and I've seen a big evolution as to the way prospecting is done. So for the audience, to simply put it, prospecting is where a salesperson is reaching out to their ideal customer profile to hopefully gauge some sort of interest to then introduce their products or services. And traditionally, most prospecting would either be done through a phone or sending out email messages. But as it stands today, there are multiple channels that we can reach our prospects, such as emailing, phone, LinkedIn, video prospecting, voice notes, or even using physical mail. And obviously, what we have to understand is we cannot predict the channel that our prospects favor. So some people like to be called, some people don't. Some people, like myself, prefer an email. Some people would prefer just having a phone call. So in today's world, especially with artificial intelligence, a lot of channels have become saturated, meaning a lot of outreach has been automated and prospects are being bombarded with hundreds of messages each week and, as the day goes on. So fundamentally, what I see as a sales trainer is a lot of new sales reps are just looking for the silver bullet or the magic channel. And what they may feel is easier to do is increase volume in the messages that they're sending. But the problem with this is, as mentioned, this saturates the channels, and a lot of messages could either end up in spam. They may not feel genuine to the people they're reaching out to. And I myself is somebody who is prospected by other salespeople. And it doesn't really annoy me, but it's interesting to see the type of messages or the type of formats that people are reaching out to. So I think if we were to say something's broken, it's going through a transition with the introduction of AI, and people are just looking for the quicker, faster, the thing that's going to win them, the meeting or the conversation with their prospect. But as with everything and within technology, things come around, they disrupt the market, they change. But I still genuinely feel that a human message or a message which speaks to that prospect or connects with them on a level where it's a simplified understanding, I think that's still the right approach. And that's what works for me because I still do my own prospecting for my business. But when I'm meeting with a lot of salespeople, they're like, Neil, what is the best way to reach out to somebody? And I don't have a concrete answer. I said it all depends on the type of people you're reaching out to. So I just think, if you're able to make that human connection with people, that's probably what's going to get a better result. But things change all the time. So, as of last year, the quickest way to reach a prospect is cold calling, to give them a call. But as we've seen this year, cold calling connection rates have dropped. And what we found is email is now making a resurgence. And similarly, video messages. So if you're on LinkedIn or perhaps you're sending on a WhatsApp, you can send video recorded messages asynchronously. I've started seeing that there's been better success this year than there was 2 years ago. So it's constantly evolving. So I don't think it's broken, but it is going through a big change.
Okay. You talk about an important concept, and it is human-centric. But when we talk about human-centric prospecting, what does really mean beyond the buzzword?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think from my point of view, human-centric is talking to people as if you would talk to anybody, like whether it's friends or family. So when I'm going through training with salespeople, they will bring to me, Eduardo, their messages, their emails, their scripts. And it can seem very professional, polished, as if it's me writing to a senior executive of a C-level suite board room, right? And the question I ask the salesperson is, when reading it out aloud, I say to them, is this how you would normally speak to your friends or family or people in general? And 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, no, I wouldn't. So the question then begs, why are you writing in this sort of approach? And it's because the salesperson may believe that because this person has a job title, there's a certain dynamic of power. So they feel that they must be speaking to some sort of royalty. So what I try to help people do is just to simplify the message. So if I was just to reach out to you, be like, hey, Eduardo, how are you doing today? Recently saw that you're doing some great things with your business. I'm working with a lot of people in your space, and I'm coming across these sort of challenges. I'm just curious to know, is this something that you're seeing? So again, very simplified conversational type of language versus, something very polished, very, over the top from my point of view. And the reality is that when these people receive these messages, especially in written communication, when they receive an email, they do not read it the way that it was written. What they do, Eduardo, is they skim for 10 to 15 seconds through the message, and they ask themselves 3 questions. Who is this? What is this message about? And what do I, as the recipient, have to do with this email?
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, if they can't answer those questions within those 10 to 15 seconds, they're either going to ignore the message or delete the message. So again,
Okay.
I think to make it human-centric, it's to just talk to them in a conversational tone. And this equally can be done either in recorded voice notes or in videos, asynchronous videos that they're sending to their prospects. So I think that's what I mean by human-centric prospecting,
Mm-hmm.
past the buzzwords.
Okay. I don't know if it happens the same in UK where you work, but here in Portugal, um, all the companies right now are leaders in something, and I'm tired of receiving leaders companies emails
Hmm.
like I am a leadership in my sector. I am a leadership. Well, Neil, I'm 47 years old, and when I started to study, the leader is the number one. Right
Hmm.
now, I don't know what leader word means, but it is something different when I started to study. And I used to say that for writing human-centric prospecting, we just need 3 steps. Please go to the website of the company you are sending an email.
Hmm.
Please go to Google News to see if there is an important news that you could refer in your email,
Hmm.
and go to the LinkedIn profile to see if there is some particular event that you talk about in your email.
Yes.
And if with that works that well, it could last like 30 seconds, you can write a different email, human-centric prospecting email.
Hmm.
What do you think about this framework, Neil?
Yeah, 100% agree and on board. It's like doing the homework or the research before reaching out to that prospect. And I would 100% agree. Like, similarly, when I'm doing sales training, those are the 3 areas that I would recommend as well. So if you go to somebody's website, you can see the About Us section, you can see the leadership, the company, people that you may want to reach out. There may be company updates such as acquisitions or growth, or perhaps they're launching a new product to market. And equally, if the company has some sort of blog, there may be some communications that you could find some interesting intel on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, your second frame, which is to go visit the person's LinkedIn profile. And, you're not just there to confirm they are the job title and they still work at that company. But I think equally what you can do is go onto their LinkedIn activity of the person you're looking at. And you can see the type of posts they're putting out or what they're commenting on, which shows what they're interested in. And again, you can tailor your message to this. And I love your point of using Google News, right? And it's the quickest, easiest way to find something to see if there's any PR or communications on that company. To take it one step further, something that I love using is ChatGPT. So
Okay.
ChatGPT is obviously connected to the internet, and it can quickly find out information about that person, that company, if it has been posted online. And I remember a fun fact, as of, I think it was last year, TikTok is another one which has outrun Google in terms as a search engine. So you can also find that information. So if that company has put out any social media posts, you can go find on TikTok if it's about them, their leadership and stuff like this. But to bring it back to your point, this is what I say, it shows that you care about that prospect and that company. You have a vested interest by doing that homework. And if you can interlace that into your messaging or saying, hey, Eduardo, I see that your company has recently launched a new office in Porto. I see that you guys are looking to increase your IT operations, etc., etc. It shows them that you're interested in them and that you've done homework. And some people do respect that as well. So when somebody reaches out to me to say, hey, Neil, I see that you've launched a new YouTube channel, or I see that you recently visited a team to do some sales training. To me, that makes me feel like, okay, this person knows me a little bit. They've done their homework, and there is some mutual respect for that. So yeah, I love the approach.
Okay, Neil. Well, what emotions do salespeople most often bring into prospecting conversations?
Yeah.
What in your sales trainings, what
Mm.
do you think that they talk about the emotions? What are the emotions?
Yeah. There's two sides to this. I'll share firstly what they do bring in, which maybe they shouldn't, and then maybe the things we could lead with, right? So in some of the prospecting messages that I've seen or received, there is an element of pressure, right? There is a pressure to have a conversation, and I wouldn't say entitlement, but it's like, we're reaching out to you, so we're having a conversation. You should speak to us. There's this element of pressure or urgency, which they may unknowingly put upon their prospects. And sometimes it can come across as desperation because, the follow-up message is, hey, haven't heard from you. Is this not relevant? And it's all fine in terms of questions. But the thing that we cannot predict, Eduardo, is how the recipient reads this back and how they kind of understand it. So a prospect may see this as annoying, or they may not see this as irrelevant, or they may see this person as pushy, right? But in terms of the emotions that we should bring in, it's around empathy. So, understanding how that person in that job title, the typical pressures that they face, or understanding what they're trying to achieve, or trying to bring in, elements of storytelling, of saying that you've spoken to these type of people and here are the results that you've seen. And, curiosity is another type of emotion that we can bring in. Like, how is this growth going? How are you finding this situation? What are you looking to achieve this year? And in terms of something that I've very felt strongly about over the years, in communications that I have, I try not to use negative language, right? I always try to keep things in a positive. So if I ever wrote an email, I look back and I try to spot any emotional language, such as what challenges are you having, or what is not working, or, it's very serious that this is happening. And one example that I can give is when we were going through the pandemic a few years ago, a lot of emails started in these hard and unprecedented times, or the challenges with and I said, this is drawing an emotional reaction that hopefully is landing with somebody, but I'm not a fan of this. So every time I see a negative bit of language in my emails, I try to find the counter positive from that. So rather than what are the challenges you're going through, because again, somebody who doesn't know you doesn't trust you, so they're not going to tell you their problems, right? But if it's rather than, what are the challenges you're going through, it could be, I'm seeing a lot of companies that want to achieve growth by taking this route. So it's still talking about overcoming challenges, but it's not saying the word overcoming challenges, right? So the emotions that we want to bring in is, calm, being trustworthy, being credible, understanding what people are going through, but being empathetic to it and not trying to unethically bring a conversation by guilting somebody or trying to add pressure onto them. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Okay. But well, sometimes there are some internal narratives or beliefs that slightly sabotage human connections in sales. I think I'm sorry. It is most common people thinking I'm disturbing the others, and and I don't know with you, but sometimes when I'm training sales teams, they are always trying to find a formula that will result with all the email or calls perfection. And I said, I'm sorry, it's not possible because rejection is part of the sales
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Okay, and do what how can we solve these internal narratives with the sales teams, Neil?
Good question. So I think going back to my earlier point of entitlement is to remove that just
Mm-hmm.
because we're reaching out to somebody that they should have a conversation with us. We also
Mm-hmm.
have to understand equally the other person doesn't have to have a conversation if they don't want to, and we cannot force them into a conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also in terms of the internal beliefs of we are, disturbing them or we are annoying them, remove that from your mindset. And the reason that I say this is we know as salespeople that that person may have a problem or they may have a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason our company exists is to help with that problem and with that challenge. And what we're doing is we're reaching out to people that may not know that we exist or that we have a solution to that problem. And the only way that we can do that is by reaching out to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a seller's job is to go find people with those problems. And to your point, understandably, we will be rejected. And that's fine. And it's very hard at the early stages of your career not to take that personally. But we have to remember that that person in that business may have other priorities, deadlines, and other things going on in their life. And another fun fact is we have something called our total addressable market, our TAM. And
Mm-hmm.
as it goes, only 5% of our TAM is ever in buying mode, meaning the other 95% are not ready to buy. But
Yes.
we have to understand that, to build pipeline, we may have our different quarters like Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. And somebody that we're reaching out to in Q1 may not be ready to buy today, but they may be in Q3 and Q4. But unless we reached out to them in the initial quarter, they may not know we exist or our
Mm-hmm.
competitor comes into there. So whenever I receive rejection, like I'm prospecting each week, and I've had a lot of sales leaders say, not ready, not for us, not a priority, rather than think, oh no, they're not interested. Why would they not be interested? I'm like, okay, fine. Here are some resources in the meantime, and you can reach back out to me when the need arises. But as a seller, I will always be reaching back out to these people every quarter to understand,
Mm-hmm.
has anything changed? Because companies go through changes, they hire people, they fire people, they go through mergers, they go through acquisitions. Your prospects world is constantly evolving. So the belief that just because you send them mail once and they're not interested doesn't mean you can't contact them again,
Of course.
unless they explicitly say do not contact me. Then in that case, yes, we don't.
Mm-hmm.
But we should always be reaching out, and rather than just reaching out with, hey, do you want to talk now? Do you want to buy now? Offer some sort of value, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, if I was reaching out to a sales leader and they're not ready, but I had some sort of resource or guide on what's happening in the industry, or here's something you
Mm-hmm.
should be thinking about, or here is a free guide to help your team with objection handling. This makes
Mm-hmm.
you more memorable, but it also shows that you're trying to help as well as just selling, right? So I think the biggest belief is we're annoying people is not the case. We're just trying to find people that have a problem to want to help them. And then the other side of it is just because they're not interested today doesn't mean they may not be interested in the future. But the only way that you can overcome this is by being consistent with your prospecting, because when you're talking to people day after day after day, the rejection starts to not annoy you or doesn't affect you because you're constantly moving forward, and you can become detached to it. But I can also understand from a seller's point of view when they're trying to hit targets, they're trying to book meetings, it can be demoralizing, especially if somebody's very rude to you on the
Mm-hmm.
phone. But that confidence comes in the constant practice of moving forward, reaching out and talking to as many people as possible. Because again, if 95% of your market is not ready to buy, you're going to have to go through a lot of
Of
conversations to
course.
find the remaining 5%.
Yes. Well, before you talk about empathy, Neil, how can salespeople be curious and respectful without sounding generic or scripted?
Hmm. So I think the best way to kind of, make it more credible and believable, the best bit of advice that I was ever given is be interested in people more than you are interested about your product. So what I mean by that, Eduardo, is when I first got into sales, one of my ideal customer targets was chief financial officers, CFOs. And my company was selling an accounting solution. Now, I didn't come from the world of accountancy. I didn't have any majors within finance, and my numbers and maths aren't the greatest, right? But what I was very curious about was, what did it take to become a CFO? What was that person's journey? What was that person's history? And if they were a very senior executive in a big Fortune 500 company, I would ask them questions as to, how did you get into this role, and what did you learn, and what is it like being a CFO? And having that curiosity really helped build a rapport with the type of people that I was talking to. And so much so that whatever I learned from this CFO, when I'm speaking to another CFO, I could share those insights and say, hey, spoke to another CFO and they told me this is what it's like in their company and this is what's happened over their career. What's yours like in comparison? And that person could relate to elements of their story, but also tell me the differences. Now, having that element of curiosity as I've gone into different companies and I've also, met other types of industries, I'm curious. So similarly, when I was selling in the world of cybersecurity, CTOs and CIOs, chief information officers, were completely different to perhaps a CFO. So again, similar to what is the background? What does it take to go into the world of cybersecurity? What do you have to learn? And sometimes I would pick up literature about like a beginner's guide to cybersecurity. And if I was meeting with developers, I want to know, how did you get into coding? What's that journey like? So I think for a lot of sellers, rather than being product experts, become industry experts. One of our mutual friends, Mafalda Johansson, she recorded a series of the day in the life of particular personas. And this gave you that insight. So again, if you're in a sales cycle and you're selling a solution, rather than what are they going to do with your solution, what is their story? What are they looking to achieve? What are their goals? What have they faced? And I think being curious in those things will help you understand your buyer much better, but you'll make a better connection with them. So when I was working in a company called Showpad, they said that 80% of sellers, and this is using Pareto's law, 80% of sellers are product experts and 20% of sellers are industry experts. But they say that the 20% of industry experts are the ones that bring in 80% of revenue, because yeah, exactly. And what they say is that your customers or your future customers don't really care too much about your product. Yes, it does a job and it serves a purpose, but what they're more interested in is what's happening in their industry. Why are other people buying from you? What are other people trying to achieve? And if you can share those insights, you're going to have better chances with your prospects. As a sales coach and as you're a sales coach, sales leaders will ask us what's working. What are other sales teams doing? What other technology are they using to help with their prospecting? So being curious and hungry for knowledge about your prospects world, I feel, is what makes things better. And it makes it more human as well, because again, people buy from people that understand them. That's the part of the quote most people miss, is people buy from people, but people buy from people that understand.
Okay. Besides that, salespeople should understand the industry, the sector. What skills will define salespeople over the next, 5 years?
I can't predict the future, but I can give my thoughts on what I've seen over the last 15 years that have benefited people in the future. So number one, I think one of the best skills that you can pick up is active listening.
Okay.
Right. A lot of sellers that I have met, they will not actively listen to their prospect, but they're having a conversation such as they give an objection and the salesperson says, oh yes, but if you look at us, we're much better than them, or we don't have the budget. I know you don't have the budget, but if you have a conversation with us, you can see the pricing discounts we can give you. This is not active listening. This is listening with the intent to reply and disregard what the other person has said. And in early days, my active listening wasn't great. I heard something and I just had an automatic rebuttal to that statement. And this was done because I had a lack of confidence and knowledge in that world. And I was fearful speaking to that person and becoming a fraudster and not being a real expert in their industry. But for active listening, it's to, take pauses, repeat back what you've heard and ask for clarity that if you understand them correctly. So, for example, somebody says, we're already using a competitor. So if I get it right, Eduardo, you've already got a solution in place. You're very happy with it. Is that correct? And the person's like, yes. And then following up as to what made you choose that solution? What is it that you like about it? And then having a conversation which is more naturally inclined, and then coming to a summary of what you understand. So if I get it right, you have a solution, you're happy, you brought this because it was the right price point, you've got a great relationship with that vendor, and it's something that's supporting your business. Is that the reason? And do I have that correct? And what it does, it shows your prospect two things. One, you actively listened. And secondly, if you have anything incorrect in that summary back, they'll be happy to correct you.
Yes.
And when a prospect is feeling listened to, they're more inclined to speak more and divulge more information. So I think active listening is a really great skill set to get on with yourself. And there's like a little bit of a cheat code. If you're really struggling to follow that conversation, then I'd always say just repeat the last three words that person has said and just say, is that the case? And then just keep repeating back. But repeating back shows you're actively listening. In terms of like other skill sets that should, really be taken upon by the seller, I think another thing is, reflecting on your work and reflecting on your messaging and having an element of self-awareness. So to give a real life example, in my business, I lose deals, right? And rather than me putting blame on the prospect and saying, well, they were difficult, they didn't see my value, etc., it's being able to take a step back and reflect as to, okay, what did I do in that sales cycle? What was my messaging like? Did I forget anything? If this happens again next time, what can I do to try and move the needle forward? And also asking feedback, I think, is the other skill set, which is great to have in sales. So, if somebody does buy from me, into the renewal discussion, it's asking the buyer, what is it that you liked about this interaction? And what do you think could be improved in future to the next person that I speak to? And, in my strategy in working with you, what do you think is great? And what do you think is not great? And what do you not like? And similarly, if I'm coaching somebody, I ask them, what is it that you like about my coaching? And what do you think I should stop doing? And what's going to be more helpful to you? Seeking feedback will help you with your growth and take things to the next level. The rep who doesn't see anything wrong with their approach or thinks everything is perfect will most likely be stumped within their growth. Because again, the most successful people that I've worked with are forever hungry for feedback and knowledge. And that is how you. So to summarize, active listening, self-reflection, and then also asking feedback.
Okay, Neil. That's a great point that you refer. I will call the self-awareness, because if, like you said, if you wanted to grow as a professional, you must be aware about the points you needed to grow, you needed to improve. Okay, I always say that when you think you don't need to improve, after that moment, you are going to start to decrease as a professional.
Yes, agreed.
Do you believe human-centric selling will become the norm or remain a niche?
Um, the honest answer is I don't know, but my hope is that it becomes more prevalent within sales to have a human-centric approach, because at the end of the day, we are selling to people and we are people. And when we seem cold or, mechanical in our conversations with our prospects, it breaks the human element. There is an argument, that with some solutions, you don't need people. Similarly, like when you buy a pizza online, you can order everything online and you don't have to talk to a human to then get the pizza that you want. But that experience of walking into a diner, speaking to a waiter, having the conversations, and perhaps, getting recommendations as to what to have on your pizza and what would be great for the family, that's the human element of the sale interaction.
Okay.
But I think in terms of a niche, or is it going to be prevalent, this all depends on the leaders that are leading those salespeople, right? Because everything I've learned to become more of a human-centric seller is based off the interactions that I've had with my leaders as I've grown up in the sales industry. I've had some really great leaders that lead with empathy, understanding, show me what it means to care when we're interacting with our prospects or with our peers and our colleagues. And on the other side, I've had leaders that have been very cold, that I've not agreed with and I've not aligned with, and treat prospects just like another number. So I think it's down to the leaders, the coaches that instill that methodology of how to sell more human, that will dictate as to, is it going to be a niche or is it going to be, something that hopefully grows more so into the future. But I think in my 15 years of being in the sales industry, I've seen some really great people that do really keep it human-centric. And you can see with, the deals that they've closed or the records that they've had is because they're still a human at it and they have that approach. One great seller that I know is a guy called Jan Mundorf, who is a successful account executive in the DACH region. But he's such a cool guy. He's such a likable person. And I had an interaction with him as, somebody going through that process. And I just said, I like the guy. It's great to talk to him. He has a warm tone with him. And that's something I would like to emulate with my prospects. When I meet people like that, Eduardo, I try to emulate the feeling that person has given me to people that I'm speaking to. So I think not so much a niche, but it's we need more of it.
Neil, I am an optimistic guy, and I do believe that we are going to become more human-centric because of the times we are living right now. Our new generation, Z generation, and the other generation that are coming, it is proved that they have less human skills. And I do believe that the next step, it will be the humanization. I do believe that. I do believe that after a lack of human skills, we are going to learn and we are going to become more human persons. We are going to have more human process. That's my belief.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Okay, Neil. The time is spent. I'm sorry, I will edit this part. So, to close, Neil, what 3 concrete actions would you recommend for salespeople who want to prospect with empathy, clarity, and confidence?
Cool. So I'll work backwards. In terms of confidence, the best way to build your confidence is to speak to more people. The more people that you speak to, the more comfortable you'll be with being uncomfortable. Historically, I was somebody that would hide behind an email. I would hide behind a LinkedIn DM. But getting on the phone or going to events or meeting prospects face to face will increase that confidence. It's kind of like a exposure therapy. Expose yourself to the thing that scares you, and the more confident you will feel within that situation. In terms of clarity, be direct in your language in an assertive tone, and seek to understand what you don't know, such as when you're doing research on a company and you see those articles or you read that LinkedIn profile or you go to the website, be clear in your question as to what is it that you want to happen in that conversation. What is the answer that you want? And try to make things concise. Similarly, sometimes we may have this bravado of all of this messaging and cryptic wording. Just be direct and be assertive, but not arrogant. Arrogance, there's a fine line between arrogance and confidence, but seek clarity. And with empathy, I think one thing that I do with my students or people that I coach is try to put yourself in that person's shoes.
Okay.
So when you write that email message or you come up with that proposal, stop thinking like a salesperson and put yourself as to how would a CFO respond to this? What is going through their mind? What is clear? What is unclear? And is this something you would want to respond to if it was sent to you? And I think in order to sit in somebody else's shoes and experience the feelings they may have will definitely increase your confidence. So yeah, that's that human contact where you're not thinking just like a salesperson. Yes, that is your job. Yes, that is your title. Yes, that is your function. But try to put yourself in their shoes and you'll lead probably with more empathy.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for your honesty, your clarity, and your human approach to sales. This conversation will reflect what the Stop to Sell stands for: selling less from pressure and more from understanding. And to everybody listening, remember, selling is not about pushing harder, it's about connecting better. Pause, reflect, adjust your behavior, and then act with intention. Neil, thanks a lot for your time, for your thoughts, and for your insights.
Thank you very much, Eduardo, and thank you very much to your audience for joining us on this chapter, and I wish you all happy selling.
Okay, bye bye.